26 period. Chapter 41 is called Alone in the Dark. And the last time I read, Hester had wandered off alone by herself into the woods, and it was implied that she was going to die. So Kip and Molly are alone. Molly and Kip picked over Hester's discarded pack, salvaging what food they could. They found dried beef and nuts and berries and even some cheese, enough to last them several days on the road. The rest they burned. Molly stared into the flames, watching the last of Hester Kettle's life smolder into nothing. Hester Kettle, who only a few hours before had been alive. She closed her eyes, trying to imagine the woman's weathered features. Already her face was slipping from Molly's memory, a shifting landscape of eyes and nose and mouth and hair that refused to fix itself into a living thing. "I never seen a person die before," she said. "Tonight I saw two. Good riddance to the doctor, I say." Kip stabbed the end of his crutch in the fire. "He left us to die out there." Molly wanted to chastise him, to tell him it was wrong to say something like that, but she stopped herself. What right did she have to tell him anything? "I saw it happen," she said. "Saw the door come down on him like a house. He couldn't even scream. One minute he's running and the next he's not." "Just be thankful it wasn't us," Kip said, though he didn't sound thankful. "So what's next? Back to the orphanage?" "Never. We'll go to another town and find work, someplace safe. Maybe a nice cemetery or a coven." She tried to smile, but her heart wasn't in it. "Maybe you could tell stories like Hester," Kip said. "Ah, maybe," she said. There was a time when Molly would have enjoyed the idea of roaming the world, telling tales to strangers, but that was before tonight, before she knew what the world was really like. What could a story possibly do in the face of a thing like the night gardener? Hester had told stories her whole life, and what did it get her? She looked at the oilskin packet that the woman had left them. She couldn't bring herself to unwrap it. Kip prodded the flames. "Fire may burn bright, but it makes the world darker. Can't hardly see a thing out there." He shivered, eyeing the shadows. "I keep thinking I can hear them in the trees." "The night gardener?" Molly shook her head. "I've been going over what happened on the bridge. He was in the cart right behind us, and when you hit the road he fell back, like something stopped him. And remember when he was after you in the woods? Maybe he didn't hurt you because you couldn't reach, so instead he gave you that key to lure you back in." Kip shifted his weight. "So you think he's tied to the tree like a leash?" "I think it's deeper than that. I think they're connected. You saw what happened when the branch broke. He howled like his own leg had snapped clean off. He's a slave to that tree, and the only way for him to go on living is to keep it alive." "I hardly call that living." Kip pulled his coat tight. "But that's how the tree works, ain't it? It gives you what you wish for, but not in a way that makes things better. I suppose that's the difference between what you want and what you need." Molly nodded. Maybe that's what Hester really meant when she said it takes your soul. She thought about Master Windsor's money. She thought about Constance's ring and Penny's stories and Alistair's candy. She thought about the letters from her parents. She had been given what she wanted, but what did she need? Kip, as if reading her thoughts, spoke. "What should we do about Ma and Dad? If they're coming to the house, shouldn't we warn them?" Molly opened her mouth to agree, but the words caught in her throat. He looked up at her. "Molls, are you all right?" Molly stared into the darkness. She swallowed. "Kip, there's something I've been meaning to tell you. Something I need to tell you." She finally met his eye. "It's about the letters." Her brother resumed poking the fire. "It's all right," he said. "I think I know where you got 'em from." He leaned to one side and dug a hand into his pocket. He removed a small tin. It was roughly the size of a biscuit. "Same place I got this." Molly didn't understand. She scooted closer and took the tin. It was cold to the touch and smelled like tree sap. A paper label ran across the front. "Dr. Rootley's Wonder Balm. It'll cure what ails you." Below the words was a picture of children dancing and running and singing. She looked at the drawing of one little boy leaping into the air, his crutches thrown above him. "Everything I wished for," Kip said, taking the tin back. Molly felt dread grip her stomach. "How long have you known?" "Since the night in the village. I wanted to tell you before, but I was afraid." Molly looked at his leg, which looked as it always did, then and turned the wrong way. His crutch rested on the log beside him. "You didn't open it," she said. No, I wanted to. So bad, he swallowed, touching the label. But then I thought, even if it works, what happens when I run out? I go back for more, and more after that. I'd never be enough. Aye, Molly said, and she knew he was right. She remembered even now the longing to read another letter and another after that. Tell me something. He was looking at her now. Why was the tree giving you letters from Ma and Dad? Molly looked down at her skirt and ran her fingers over the muddy, frayed fabric. Sounds like you already know, she said. I need to hear you say it. Molly clenched her jaw, recalling the things she had fought so hard to banish from her mind. Somewhere in the darkness she could hear the river flowing between black trees. Every time I hear that river, it brings me right back to the sea. She could hear them now, screaming over the crash of waves. She swallowed. You don't remember when we left Ireland. By the time we reached port, you were sick with fever. Kip hung his head. It's not your fault. Lots of folks were getting sick, and that boat didn't help none. It was shameful the way they packed us in, kept us locked below decks like animals, barely any food or water. I suppose we were animals to them. She clenched her fists, remembering. The second night it was all four of us huddled into one little bunk. There was a storm. The boat was rocking so violent, folks were sliding right off their beds. We could hear the rain outside. Wind and thunder shook the whole sea. Black water started coming in through portholes. The crew was running and shouting on the deck. We called for him to let us out of the hold, but nobody listened. The whole time Ma kept you in her arms, singing to you softly the way she did when we was little. Molly blinked into the flames, hearing her mother's voice. Finally, there was a huge crack, like the spine of the earth breaking in two. Water started pouring in from the deck above, filling up around our ankles. Dad and some other men broke through the door, and everybody ran to the deck. I helped Ma carry you. One of the masts had snapped right in half. White sheets was all ripped to rags. The rain was coming sideways, waves big as mountains all around. The crew was gone. They deserted us, left us to die. Kip was holding his crutch. There were no lifeboats? Aye, there was one left, with enough room for about 20. People fought like beasts to get into it, but Dad, he fought harder. He reached the boat just before they was going to cut it loose. The men said there was only room for 2. Molly looked away from Kip. Her heart was pounding in her ears. It was hard to breathe. It was harder to speak. She took a slow breath. Ma and Dad put you in my arms and put me in the boat. I screamed at him not to, but they wouldn't hear me. Ma pulled me close. Take care of him, she said. He's yours now. So she let go, and then she blinked, tears spilling from her eyes, and then they were gone. Molly crumbled her face in her hands. The tears she had been storing inside her for so long broke free. The sobs took hold of her entire body. If Kip spoke or moved, she did not hear it. She swallowed, wiping her face. I meant to tell you, I swear. But when we landed and you woke up, and you asked where Ma and Dad was, she shook her head as a new wave of tears came. I couldn't do it. I couldn't say the words. She pressed her lips together. And so I told you a story. You didn't tell a story, Kip said softly. You lied. Even in the orange light of the fire, his face looked pale. I know there's nothing I can do to fix this. Molly reached toward him, but he pulled away. I was scared. I wanted it to be true. I wanted to think of them out there in the world having adventures, and part of me thought it could be true. Their ship was lost, but maybe they got away. They didn't, Kip said. He sounded firm. Molly nodded. I know, and I was going to tell you the truth. But then I found the tree, and I found the letters written Ma's own hand, and I thought, what if they were real? What if a miracle had happened and Ma and Dad were still out there? If somehow they survived? It would mean my lie wasn't a lie at all. It would mean we weren't alone. I didn't expect you to forgive me. Not now, maybe not ever. But I need you to understand that I was trying to protect you. I was trying to do right. Kip released a heavy breath. How many folks buried around the tree thought they were doing right? Molly did not answer. She couldn't answer. Her brother glared at her and lowered his head. I want to hate you. I want to kick and scream at you for lying to me. But the lie wasn't really for me. That was your wish. I had something else in my heart, something I longed for even more than Ma and Dad. He clasped his tin in his hand, and when he looked back at Molly, his eyes were shining with tears. So what kind of person does that make me? Molly grabbed hold of him, pulling him to her. It makes you a regular person, no more, no less. She felt his arms clasped tight around her ribs. She pressed her face into the messy red hair. They held each other for a long moment, arms tight, face burned. It was a different sort of embrace. There was no coddling. It was strength upon strength. Kip held her up, and she held him up. All right, I'm going to stop there. I will try to be back tomorrow. I have been forgetting to read to you. I'm very sorry. So I hope you have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.